Alright, so we are here with my buddy Rupert's Shovelhead. So basically what this thing's going on, this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but because this is a big inch motor, it's high compression, you know, it's a really fast motor, you just absolutely struggle to start it with these mags. Now this thing obviously has two mags, it's probably the defining feature of this bike. It is super sick, don't get me wrong, but Magnetos work great on old fucking like 61 inch or like, you know, small inch motors with low compression that you can really kick over fast and really get the spark really nice and hot straight off the bat. Now this thing, because it's got two mags and it's got all this inches and it's all sorts of compression, it is super hard to start, like absolute nightmare to start. You just can't get enough kick to turn this motor over fast to get a good spark. And something you probably wouldn't realize with a Magneto, maybe you have one on your bike, with a Magneto, to stop it, you earth the Magneto. But if you've got two Magnetos like this, you can't put them in a series to earth it, because one will backfeed the other and then neither of them will work. So this thing has two switches to turn off the Magnetos. Now the other weird thing about this is a twin plug head engine as well, so it has two plugs in each head. Now, I would have thought that one Magneto, say the rear Magneto, would run the rear head and then the front Magneto would run the front head. But that's not how it works at all. So one Magneto will run a spark plug on each head. So it's a little bit funky how that works. But this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I've spoken to Rupert about this thing. There's really nothing else we can do with this motor to make it easier to kick. So what I'm going to do with it, I'm going to put this thing back to coil and points. So yes, the mags are fucking super cool and everything else, but if you can't ride it, what's the point in having it? So obviously this is a kick only bike. The other way you could do it is put a starter motor on it and then it would start easy, but sort of defeats the purpose of having mags then, doesn't it? Because then you're going to need a big battery. You're going to have to fit a starter motor in here somewhere, which is super expensive when you run a tin primary like this. And this is also a 5-speed, is it a 5? No, it's a 6-speed, just to make it a little bit more annoying. So there's quite a bit of stuff going on here, and it is going to be super annoying to pull this engine apart, make it a low comp. You probably leave the stroke in it because you got to change the flywheel. Why fuck around when I just bought a coil and point setup? Obviously we're going to change this whole thing. I'm going to put a different cam cover on it, and then I'm just going to put points in it and then put a coil on it. I think it was like 500, 600 bucks worth of parts. Much easier than pulling this engine apart and trying to, you know, lower the comp or, you know, just make it slower all around. Rupert said this, when this thing's running, it is super fast. It is a foot clutch and a jockey shift. So he said when you're going through gears in this thing, it's picking the front wheel up. So it has got a lot to go about it. It would be a shame to go backwards and, you know, make it slower. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's get through the intro and we'll talk about what parts I've got and how we're going to start tackling this thing. Alright, so if you guys aren't really familiar with magnetos, basically the idea of magneto is it doesn't need a battery to run. So these things generate their own power, they have a coil inside them, and that's what sends a spark to our spark plug. Basically, the faster you spin these things, the brighter and more powerful the spark will be. So in this case, when we were kicking it super slow because it's a big inch engine with a lot of compression, hard to kick over fast. So when we kick it slow, we're never getting a good spark to our combustion chamber, which means it never wants to start for us. Also, when a spark plug's under compression, the more compression it's under, the more power it needs to spark the spark plug. You have a look at like a big dragster engine, for instance. They have two massive magnetos on the side of them because they need to run, I think they run like maybe 200,000 volts through their spark plugs. Just because there's so much compression in the engine, that's how much power they need to set the spark plug off. So the more compression in there, the harder it is to spark the spark plug. Anyway, when it spins, it creates its own power, which powers the coil inside. It also has a point set up inside, so it's timed and it tells the spark plug when to spark. A normal point setup, which is what we're going to put in, has a battery which powers the coil, and then the coil is fired by our point setup. Now the beauty of that is no matter how fast you're kicking over the bike or how fast it's running, it's always going to have the same power to the coil. So it's always going to have the same amount of power to your spark plug, which is good for this engine that we're not kicking over real fast and we need a lot of spark. So that is what we're trying to achieve when pulling this apart. So basically where we're going to start with this thing, I'm just going to pull all the leads off it. Now before I mentioned that this thing is a dual plug head. So each head has 2 spark plugs in it. Now just for the time being, I just want to have a bit of proof of theory here, and I want to put these points on, and I'm just going to run it off one set of spark plugs. So 1 spark plug in each head's all I'm going to run it off for time being. And then if Rupert wants, he can either put another coil on, so run 2 coils and 4 leads, or you can buy leads that go from 1 into 2. So you can buy a split lead that'll fire 4 spark plugs off 1 coil. So I'm just going to run off one set of spark plugs like I said. So I'm going to take all these leads off here, and then I've got to get rid of this brake rod here. It sort of comes really close to our timing cover here. That whole cover has to come off because that's part of our Magneto setup. So I might have to modify this yet, but I'm just going to take it off for the time being and we'll run this thing. And like I said, just a bit of proof of theory, make sure this works. So I'm going to go through, get all these leads off, and then we will pull this cover off together. But obviously to pull the cover off, we don't want to put a heap of pressure on the cam, so we want to undo our push rods and loosen them up and pull them out. Alright, so I've taken all the push rods out of this, and that's basically because wherever this engine sits, there's always going to be one push rod putting pressure on the lifter onto the cam. So you don't want to pull this chest off while you've still got pressure on your cam, because you'll be putting all that pressure onto your bearing in your case here. Also, you won't be able to put it back together like that. You might, but it'd be super annoying. It's easy just to take them out, and then we'll set them again. They're only hydraulic, so that'll be easy. And then we can take this front bit off. Another thing I did off camera was, with these Magneto setups with their own front cover here, they have this little gear that goes in there. So that gear basically bolts where the points usually would. Just has a little key indicator there that bolts to the cam, and that's what spins our Magnetos. So just to make this a bit easier to take off, I usually take this out. I'm not sure if you need to, but like I said, we'll make it a little bit easier. Alright, so now that I got that out, I'm just going to stick that back on there so I don't lose it. These threads always gall up too, I'm not sure why, but anyway, that looks alright. Let's take this cover off now. Now, I've got this thing sitting on the stand, which makes it a bit easier as well, because not only is it laying over a bit, it's easy to work on. All the oil will stay in there as well. Probably not all of it, but most of it will stay in there. I have a gasket for this that I bought, so I don't really care if it breaks the gasket, but fingers crossed, we'll see what it does. It is a bit of a pain taking these Magnetos off. The thing looks so sick, but like I said, if your bike doesn't run, if this was a showpiece, sure, looks sick, bolt them on there, but these things belong on like a low compression, easy to kick over bike. No worries at all. So let's freaking see what happens here. Oh yeah, Like I said, most of the oil will stay. Not all of it, most of it. We're pulling the cam out. Oop. This is going to be a good time to see what cam this thing's running as well. Holy shit, this is heavy. It's a nice piece though. Look at that. All perfectly machined. All super nice. Pins in it look good. Super, super nice piece. Be very expensive. So I'm going to measure this gasket, I think, just to make sure that the gasket I'm putting on won't put too much pressure on our little doodads here, because I think I'll probably need to check float on this thing. So like I said, I want to check what cam this is. It's got an S&S number on it, so I'll see what cam that is. Hopefully it's the right cam for it. And then I have my other chest that I want to polish it before I put it on, just because this motor's quite nice. I'll give it a polish before I put it on. Alright, so just quickly thinking about this, because I'm going to put a new chest on this, a new cam chest on this, I need to check the float for the cam and our little breather gear here. So what I mean by float is this cam can't be tight between the chest and the rear casing. You see how I can move this back and forth like that? This needs to have a tiny little bit of float when I've completely tightened up our chest here. So because I'm changing chests, I sort of need to have a look at that. Easiest way to do that is pop your freaking, without breaking it, because I'm probably going to reuse these gaskets. Pop your little lifter blocks off here so you can stick your finger through the lifter block and feel what it's got. I only really need to do it with one. But I might check the lifters while I'm here. I might as freaking well. So I imagine these are going to be really good lifters, just because everything else in this engine is so freaking nice. But I'll do this on the bench. So like I said, take that guy out. Try not to mess up this. Maybe I can reuse them, because they look pretty nice. Like I said, you could do it with just taking one out, but I might as well check our lifters while we're here. Like I said, they are super nice lifters, so this is a super nice engine. I would hate for it to be falling apart, and all I had to do was check something. So that's all that. I had a quick look at this cam. This is an S&S 585V. So it says this is a good cam for, I think it was 88 cube all the way up to like 124 cube engines. So this is obviously a big engine. I think this thing is like a 96 inch. I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, this is a big stroker engine. So because I've just whipped this out, I'm gonna have to time all this again. So it's pretty easy to time. We're just looking for our two little timing marks. There's one. Just like that. Have a look at our timing mark here. That goes in there. Timing mark lines up with this timing mark. Oh, gone the wrong way. And then that timing mark will line up with this one. So our mark in our bottom end, there's our oil. So that oil there comes out of the oil pump into the case and then down into our bottom end. So it's super important that works. That's the most important oil out of the whole lot. So that's that. Let's jam this back in. Timing there. My freaking cam. Where's my marks? And there and there. Just like that. Mark, mark, done. So I'm going to polish up my case now, and then we'll have a look at the lifters, and then we'll start putting this crap back together. Alright, so you guys have seen me check these lifters a million times. We're just making sure that our wheel is nice and true. We don't have all sorts of scores and shit through here. Remember, we want to put these back in the same way we pulled them out. So if this thing's found its home going up and down, you want to make sure you put it back in its little home. So these look nice. I'm expecting them all to be super nice. This whole motor is freaking nice. So I don't reckon there'll be any issues here at all. These nice, completely billet lifter blocks too. They are super nice. Everything on this motor is so nice. Anyway, they're sweet. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, because we're changing our cover, this is the cover after I polished it, turned out pretty freaking nice. You have different covers, so different chests for a shovel and then like an Evo. So they have different porting here. You've got to have a look at your oil. So remember on the engine where I was pointing out when I was turning it over, the oil was coming out of. So that's the port there. So the oil's coming out that port, going in there, across this channel here, and then into our crankshaft here. So into our pinion shaft, and it goes up the pinion shaft into the big end. So just make sure that you have the right cover. If you put the wrong cover on, you will not get pressure to your bottom end, and you won't know. Your pressure gauge will still say that your engine's got pressure, but you'll have nothing going to the bottom end. So that is bad. So this is the correct cover. As I said, it's nice and polished now. I put a new seal in there. So this thing is ready to go on. And then we will check our cam float. Alright, so I pretty well got this all dialed in, ready to go back together. First things first, I leant the bike over and sprayed out all this with degreaser and or brake cleaner. And that is because our freaking pump pickup, our scavenger, our pump picks up down here. So any crap that the engine has, you know, fallen in here or whatever, you can wash it all out. So just tip it all the way over this way like that, spray it all out, and then when you tip it back, it doesn't leak all over the surface that you want to put back together. So here is my gasket. Like I said, we're going to check the float on this cam because we are changing our chest. But to check our float, we need to put all the bolts in and basically have this thing in running condition. So what I like to do, get it all ready to go back together like that. Bolt all our bolts together and then check our float, because the reason I've got it all ready to go back together, so you don't have to pull it apart again. So if I bolt this together and our float's good, then I can just keep going, but if it's not good, I pull it back apart. So that is why we have got it in basically good to go condition. Now our bolts for this chest are different lengths, so just remember, don't just toss them anywhere. They go in specific spots. So our two short ones go down here, longest shorter. Alright, so I've got that chest all bolted on now. I was worried about having to remake my little brake arm here, but that fits, so that's fucking sweet. So if we look in here, here is obviously our little cam, and all we want to do is ever so lightly press that back and forth. Now you can just see it moving. The other way you can do it, you can move this washer here. As long as you can move that stuff and it's not tight, that's what you want. But you don't want excessive backlash. You want it, this needs to be sort of between, I think it's 5 thou or something in the book, no bigger than 5 thou. So this is sweet, that is good to go. So I'm just going to go through now, chuck our lifters in. You know all about that, don't have to watch that. I'm going to chuck my lifters in, push rods in, get all that sorted, and then we're going to sort out our timing. So I've done it a million times, but let's do it 1,000,001. Alright, so like I said, this thing's got hydraulic lifters in it, so when you are doing your push rods, you have to wait for them to bleed down to make sure you're right before you can start on the next one. So while I'm waiting on those lifters to bleed down, I need to put a coil on this thing because we're getting rid of the Magneto, so there's nowhere to put a coil on. Usually, like a standard frame, it'd have your two little bolts here, you could put a coil on or something, but they're not there, so I'm going to put the coil back in the middle of the cylinders, which I think looks good because then you got two small little leads that come off it, hides everything, looks super nice. So because this doesn't have a center coil mount, I've gone ahead and bought this little guy. So this is a tricky little guy. This is just a center mount that has a coil mount on it here. So that guy will sit in there like that. And then I've just bought a little unboxing video too for you. I've just bought an Andrews coil here. Now remember, with points, you always run a high ohm. So I've got a 4.8 ohm. When you're running electronic ignition, it runs a smaller ohm, less ohms. So, like I said, I got this guy and this guy, so he's gonna bolt there like that, and then I'm gonna bolt that guy like that. So, like I said, it sort of, you know, keeps everything nice and compact. And then I just bought some, I forget what they were. I just looked up what year bikes run the coil in the center, and I just bought those leads. So they're going to be a right angle to right angle, two short little leads. So let's go ahead, like I said, whack this on while I'm waiting on those lifters to bleed down. Alright, so I have my coil over the other side pretty well sorted now, and all my push rods are now bled down. If you don't know what I mean by bled down, I've done a couple videos on this, but basically when you set a hydraulic push rod, they go tight and you have to wait fucking 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, for them to bleed down to check your lash like that. They have to be able to spin after you've done it, and then you know you've done it right. So just to be double sure of my timing, I'm going to leave them up like that because we are going to put our point setup in now. Because I've got all the coil and stuff done, I might as well put this in, and then I just got to wire it up. So basically this is how you would buy a complete point setup out of Australia. This is a fucking company called Rollies. I'm not sure if Rollies sell in America. If you guys are in America, do you guys buy Rollies stuff over there? Rollies Speed Shop. Put it in the comments, would you? I'd be interested to know. Anyway, this is basically it. If you guys want a part number, there it is. It is BAI-19-0310. Now you can put this point setup in so much shit. You can put it in like a sporty from, when do they start Dizzy? I think it's finished Dizzy. I think it's 70 all the way through to like probably 2000 or something. You'll be able to put this in. Sportster, Big Twin, whatever. They are so versatile and so easy. And this thing's like 150 bucks and it comes with absolutely everything. Like it has the complete points plate, has the condenser, has all the points on it, everything. Mind you, this is probably a pretty shit setup. You need the points plate, but you can't buy that individually. So if you were really, you know, worried about it, you'd probably buy this and then buy like an Acel points and condenser setup. But, you know, these days they're probably all made in the same factory no matter what you buy anyway. So might as well just go China because everything's fucking China these days, or India. India is the new China. Anyway, it comes with our mechanical advance, our auto advance, and also comes with all the hardware. So our little bolt here to go through there. So I might just see if I can pinch a little bit of oil somewhere. Don't put Loctite on this, for God's sakes. You don't want this getting stuck in your damn can. So just a bit of oil or grease on there. It's got a little key to line it up. Hopefully this will focus, but see this little key here, this little notch has to line up with the notch in your can. So don't fuck that up, whatever you do. And the other thing, if you pull your little points cam off like this, it's got a flat here. Now that flat lines up with another little key in the advance unit. So make sure that's the right way around. You cock it up, it's not gonna fucking work. These are the little things you've got to get right that make a huge difference. So, give this a tighten, don't swing off it, it's a tiny little bolt. Always make sure your points works, just cycle it like that. Nice and loose, that's good. And then that is literally it, that'll go straight in there. fucking Boots. Bobby's your father's daughter's uncle, or whatever the saying is. Just like that. And by the looks of it, this thing's close to top dead. So all we got to do now is we got to go over the other side and we will get this motor to top dead center. Alright, so I have my points in there. I have my cable half ran. I still haven't wired it up. But just to get this motor in the right spot, we need to get it to top dead center. Now I just wanted to show you, usually that's pretty simple. But on this motor, hopefully you can see it. See how it's got those weird timing marks? So that says TF on it. This is how you tell this thing is a hot boy. This thing has a bit of go about it. It's got aftermarket flywheels in it. So I think this is like a 96 inch or something. So TF stands for top dead front cylinder. On these fast boy engines, you can time off the rear cylinder and stuff as well. So I've got my engine in the right spot now. Now I just need to take a power, an ignition power from this somewhere to power one side of the coil, and then I need to put my points on the other side of the coil. So bear with me, I will quickly wire this thing up and then we can set the points, and then hell, all there is to do is start it after that. Alright, I feel like I have showed you a million times how to set up points, but I thought I'd set my camera up in a bit better position and hopefully you'll be able to see it better and maybe it'll make more sense to you. So I have the engine at top dead center as we said, so this is where we want to set our points. You can also set it at your 30-degree mark and then advance your advance unit, but let's not go crazy, let's just do it the simple way. So the engine's on top dead center. So when the weights are not sprung out, when they're in their retracted state, they want to see top dead center. So we'll take these, first things first, we're just gonna take our little posts out here, and you just wanna make sure that you have your 20 thou points gap before you start doing this. Yes, the book says fucking 18 thou or something, but 20 is what you want. So get your little feelers here. So 20 thou, I only have my metric, so half a mil is close enough. So what I've done is I've moved this, and on our follower lobe here, this is on our points lobe here, our cam follower, there is a small peak and then a big peak. When I say big and small, there's a wide and then a small one. So the small one is your front cylinder, the wide one is your rear cylinder. That's how you can tell if you're somewhere close. The small one is lining up. So we're just going to move our follower on top of that small one, and then we have a little points gap here. Just there is our points gap. So get your 20 thou and jam it in there. So mine is a little bit small, but like I said, that's good. So make it to that. So now put it back to somewhere here, and we'll put our posts back in. So you don't want to tighten these up. We're just going to put them in so that we can still move our plate around, because we're going to set the timing now. So like I said, just do these up so they just touch. We want to be able to move the plate around. It's a bit hard with the camera right in the way. You probably guys don't realise that, but you guys are fucking annoying. Anyway, so there we can still move our plate around just like that. So now that we can do that, we just want to make sure it touches because it has to earth. Alright, so now we want to get our trusty test light. Now I've wired this up, so you have to make sure that your points is wired up. So one end of your test light to be on earth, and the other one is going to be on our little terminal here. So I'm going to turn the key on. So when we see this light come on, just there, so we want to take it back just till it turns off. So light on, we just want to go till it just turns off, and that's the spot, just there. So sometimes when you tighten these up, the light will come back on. Not in this case. Oh yeah, see the light comes back on. So you just want to go a little bit more so the light doesn't come on. Just like that. And that is your points set. So that is your static time points. Now you can go ahead and dynamic, or don't even fucking look at it because I never do. Just move this. If you want more advanced, just move this guy. If you want less, just move. But That is your baseline. Usually it is somewhere near the center. You can see that it's center of our adjustment, so that is freaking perfect. So all there is to do now is kick this thing in the guts and see what it does. Alright, so I got this thing pretty well sorted now. I had to put my timing plug back in, put my leads on, and put my pushrod tube covers back on. So I've checked the oil in this thing. Make sure you check your engine and gearbox every single day you ride your fucking bike. You speak to some people like, oh, have you checked your oil? And they're like, oh, I checked it like a week ago, it'll be fine. Check it every single time you ride your bike. You never know how much oil this thing's going to use one day, or drop one day, or one night. You never know. Make sure the accelerator pump is working. Oh, fuck this filter. We're starting that count again. 1. 2. 3. Turn the choke off, key on. How good's that? I'm going to call that 5 kicks. So, away it goes. Now all I have to do is take this thing for a bit of a test ride tomorrow. It's too late now, so tomorrow's job, I've got to pump up a couple of tyres. This thing wet sumped on me. It's been sitting for a while, not surprising really, but started up a treat. The points have made it so much nicer to start. Like I said, I kicked this thing for fucking hours a couple of weeks ago trying to get this thing to run, but there it was, 5 kicks, away it went. So sweet, let's take this thing for a run.